So as I said, Steve Reddington is not here today, but he's here in picture. This was his ideas thinker. One of the big projects that we had, the zoo project, was actually Steve's idea. So this was his kind of ideas, little pose at the launch. So energy and carbon. So just recently the carbon got in. It used to be energy into optimisation. And we've pushed a carbon sort of stream in there as well now. So energy, obviously, you know, the sector uses a lot of energy, some more than others. So this stream is basically looking at how do we optimise the performance from the energy side of things and also the cost. So the two sort of opportunities. The performance, you know, efficiency is a big link with the emissions side of things. Obviously, we've all got pledges to reduce our emissions. So there's been a big focus on that as well. And then leading into the carbon element, that energy, you know, reducing energy is a portion. If we can reduce the energy, make the rest renewable, that's some of the ways there. There is still residual carbon from fugitive emissions and whatnot. So that also needs to be tackled. So we're looking at opportunities through there to, you know, sequester and offset, which we try to use different platforms potentially to do that through this program. We don't have a working group just for IWN for energy and carbon. We leverage off the IWA SIG group a little bit to sort of, we don't need to reinvent the wheel when there is already a platform there with those people involved. So the IWA SIG come in, there's 3 times a year. There's one just coming up in November. And there's also that's a general on the Thursday. Friday is a conference. So this conference is about climate change and whatnot as well moving in the future. So it's a good event to go to if you want to learn more there as well. So we use that, as I said, we always have sessions there which we give the updates of the programs where they are. We can also chunk some time out there for workshopping to get those other ideas from that opportunity there as well. The WASA, again, we have an climate change, energy, environment network. We have an annual meeting, 2-day workshop. Again, it's a whole of Australia opportunity, but we use that as a platform to leverage and spruik basically IWN and what's happening there, and also pick up opportunities from others around the country, and that's sort of one of being the key catalysts from the energy carbon point of view of that membership. You know, Queensland, QU going, how do we sign up to IWN? And that's where we sort of get that sort of leverage happening from. And there was another group which was a working group to create the statement of obligations for emissions reduction. So that group has sort of morphed into a couple of little different groups working for that offsets point of view, because that's something that still hasn't been, you know, we still haven't locked that away in any way whatsoever. There's still a bit of work to do there. So there's several other groups that we kind of tack into rather than having just a separate IWN working group for this one. So, zero emissions water. Put your hand up if you have not heard about this project. Oh, that's pretty good, isn't it? Only one. Cool. Well, it's your lucky day too. Your lucky day today. You'll get to learn all about it. So, as I said, this started in 2015. Idea from Steve. Basically sitting in a room going, how can we as a water industry collaborate and actually build our own renewable sort of facility and own it and get the power from it all together, because we can't do it by ourselves. You know, we've always tried. Energy prices were really low, so it just never stacked up. How can we do it? You know, surely there's an economy of scales. And we also say, how do we do this? Can we do this? How do the electrons get from here and there? And no one was really too sure. So we started on a bit of a feasibility, looking at how would this work, what are the options to do that, with one of the key sort of risks from that was, how would we all collaborate? If we all had to get in together, how would we make decisions and share losses and the wins and get everyone on board to agree for that decision? And that was one of the key sort of risks of it. So we progressed through and got to a stage where it was a power purchase agreement was the way to direct ownership. There's a little bit more work sort of through government and whatnot to be able to get to that stage. Well, we're not there yet. The power purchase agreement worked quite well, and it's a what we call a contract for difference. So basically, to make it easy, you still have a standard retail contract, just like you have your home energy bills. So all the water co-ops still have their own bills, and this is a separate product off the side, and it's a financial sort of product that gets us the green, the LGC, the green certificates, and that's where the carbon reduction comes in by surrendering those back to the Clean Energy Regulator. So Zoo had to be created, so it's an entity for the 13 water corps that all actually own Zoo now, and that's the one conduit that we have with Kiamal Solar Farm. So the Kiamal Solar Farm doesn't deal with all the 13 water corps, it deals with one entity being Zoo, and then Zoo just passes that back through and spreads off the money and the certificates into each 13 water corps. So Kiamal Solar Farm, largest solar farm in Victoria, 200 megawatts. We have about 15% of the farm is sort of our allocation, and for each water corp, they sort of had to have a minimum buy-in of 20% of their energy. So, our 20% of South East Water would be a lot different to a Southern Rural Water coming in for their 20%, but it gives them the opportunity to come in, which they would never get a deal like this without everyone else on board. So again, it's that collaborative approach that really is the benefit. And it's a cost, so there's we model it that there should be a revenue stream coming in, which can be used just on your bottom line, or you can offset it against your electricity bills, whatever you choose, basically. And there's the surrendering element of the certificates. So you can choose to sell those if you want more revenue, or you can choose to surrender them, which basically is no revenue given, but you get the carbon reduction. So that'll all kick off. It's meant to kick off this month, but they're waiting for some more parts from America, I believe, for the farm. So it's around December now is when they're looking at actually kicking that and getting one going. Sub-metering. So from an energy efficiency point of view, if you want to sort of start looking at doing those things in your treatment plants or pump stations, you really need to know what's happening. You need to know if you're going to make a change, it'd be nice to know you actually measure that change. So sub-metering is probably one of the key things that we need to really get on top of and be able to actually measure what's happening in treatment plants when we're trying to put these initiatives in, that we can see that benefit. So we can get data. Data's great, where there's lots of data. A few data folk here we were talking to last night, and you can get data, but then what you actually do with it is the next step as well. So there's a program here with a company called Outperformers, and they've designed the metering sort of architecture and design for each of the three water corps included, and each one's quite different. The architecture of the treatment plants, how they're set up and actually being designed and put together, will create different issues of where and how you have to meter it. Some can be very simple. We could meter here, here, and here. Job, you've got everything covered. Others, you've got to go, here we've got to put 1 here, you've got to put 10 in here, 6 in here. So costs can be different. So if there's new assets that you're building and whatnot, it's something to be considered up front. It should be just a standard thing to get things metered. So the platform then will actually grab that data and then put into useful information for you. So we haven't finished it yet, where they're still just basically in the trial, but all North East Water have already, in the first round of data they've grabbed, they've identified there was a blower that wasn't working properly. So it just triggers them to go and have to investigate that and find the savings straight up. So we're already seeing some quick early wins with that one. Another one in collaboration with WASA. So WASA, we did an energy benchmarking a couple of years ago for treatment plants, and this was round 2. So IWN has the ability that we paid for all Victorian water corps to be part of this project, and it was basically WASA's biggest participation from water corps in any project. So it's about 31, 32 water corps included, and that couldn't have happened without IWN basically being that conduit to get everyone in there. This was then a spin-off of that, looking at basically a training program. So what are the actual training needs in energy? So it's becoming quite important. Does everyone actually have the information that they need? So there was a project looked at, we basically had a matrix of going, what type of role would you have and what sort of training components do you need? So the matrix all been set up and you can sort of work out what it is, and there's a bit of high level information about each one. But the point of where this needs to get to is actual material, training material written. So there hasn't been probably a consensus to go, do we get some third party to come in, we pay for it and they actually write up the material, or do we as water corps write sections of it and share it with each other? So then you can actually, if you want to present on that bit, you can. This also got presented at the Vic Water Conference, and there was, great opportunity there as well, and a need that they wanted for new directors coming in to actually, and new execs, that we can actually do a workshop with them and basically outlay some of this high-level training. Again, the executive training is high level, don't need to go into a lot of detail. So it'll be something to look at next year that we can bring in the energy training for the execs, and we can actually look at it that Water Corps can actually come in and present on each section. What are they doing? Barton Water's doing lots with solar, sub-metering. Yarra Valley come in and talk about their sub-metering. Northeast Water might come and talk about their procurement. So it actually gives some real life case studies on some of these, and also linking in a carbon. So there's a bit of a carbon 101 piece getting done as well. So again, another platform to bring that in to get that education level up. Another initiative is, it was probably born more from DELP, but they come through IWN to get some assistance with this, and it's looking at demand response. So as you probably hear, Hazelwood's shut down, other power stations are getting maintenance and need repair. So in summertime, there's issues with power supply, there's not enough. So last year we had, I think it was the 24th, 25th, thereabouts of January, a couple of hot days, and Water Corps got called for demand response. So basically, there's different ways you can shed power, so you can just turn off things you know you can avoid, or you can turn on generation. So South East Water turns on diesel generation, so runs a plant on diesel, drops their load off the grid, supplies more, there's more available supply for your customers and the community, so their power basically stays on. You get paid somewhat handsomely to do so. So this opportunity was basically, look, this summer's going to be bad. DELP want us to look at what else can you do. This is what you did last year, but can you do more? So we engaged one called NLX to come in and look at all water corporations and going, what do you do? What can you do? What's possible? And to sign up for basically this demand response for summer. So there's stuff that you can do straight away. There's stuff that you might need to put in investment into. But money is one bit, you do make it, but ultimately you're stopping your customers' power from going out ultimately. And it's not that hard. Once, people like operations will have sort of points, oh, can I do that? Can I not? Can I not? But if you work through with them and they say, oh, that's not too bad, we can handle that. So, and there's limits. So yeah, that was a great opportunity there as well, and we'll see what summer brings, and if we can make a better impact again than last summer. So a couple little things that are coming up, carbon offsets. As we said, we're looking at what can we do as a collaborative approach, economy of scales, can we leverage Zoo that's already there to go out and do something else in that frame. So we're doing we're just sort of starting to draft up a project there. Floating solar, been a bit of talk about floating solar. The technology itself is there, but where we're sort of looking at is basically the water benefits potentially. So you've got a water storage, you're covering it up, you're stopping, sunlight, algae production and whatnot. Doesn't sort of help as much on a wastewater plant because you need that aeration, that UV for treatment, but from a water storage, potentially it can work. So a few conversations with a provider at the moment to see what we can do there. And Barwon are looking at a bit of a bigger scale battery opportunity. So we had the small scale battery at Yakandanda a couple of years ago. So this is how can we get something out of a bigger scale. So there'll be, you'll hear more from those as they develop. But as I said, get involved. If you've got someone that's not going to the SIG, find out who's going to the Energy SIG and make sure there's representatives there. Talk about your ideas, bring ideas to the program leads, and these projects back within your water corporations.